Chapter 12, Part 2 of How I Found Livingstone. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Tim Kyle. How I Found Livingstone: Travels, Adventures, and Discoveries in Central Africa, including 4 months' residence with Dr. Livingstone. By Sir Henry M. Stanley. Chapter 12, Part 2, Intercourse with Livingstone at Ujiji. Livingstone's own story of his journeys, his troubles, and disappointments. On discovering that the insignificant stream called the Chambezi, which rises between 10 degrees south and 12 degrees south, flowed westerly, and then northerly through several lakes, now under the name of the Chambezi, then as the Luapula, and then as the Lualaba, and that it still continued its flow toward the north for over 7 degrees, Livingstone became firmly of the opinion that the river whose current he followed was the Egyptian Nile. Failing at latitude 4 degrees south to pursue his explorations farther without additional supplies, he determined to return to Ujiji to obtain them. And now, having obtained them, he intends to return to the point where he left off his work. He means to follow that great river until it is firmly established what name shall eventually be given the noble waterway whose course he followed through so many sick toilings and difficulties. To all entreaties to come home, to all the glowing temptations which home and innumerable friends offer, he returns the determined answer, "No, not until my work is ended." I have often heard our servants discuss our respective merits. "Your master," say my servants to Livingstone's, "is a good man, a very good man. He does not beat you, for he has a kind heart. But ours, oh, he is sharp, hot as fire." From being hated and thwarted in every possible way by the Arabs and half-castes upon first arrival in Ujiji, he has, through his uniform kindness and mild, pleasant temper, won all hearts. I observed that universal respect was paid to him. Even the Mohammedans never passed his house without calling to pay their compliments, and to say, "The blessing of God rest upon you." Each Sunday morning he gathers his little flock around him, and reads prayers and a chapter from the Bible in a natural, unaffected, and sincere tone, and afterwards delivers a short address in the Kiswahili language about the subject read to them, which is listened to with interest and attention. There is another point in Livingstone's character about which readers of his books and students of his travels would like to know, and that is his ability to withstand the dreadful climate of Central Africa, and the consistent energy with which he follows up his explorations. His consistent energy is native to him and to his race. He is a very fine example of the perseverance, doggedness, and tenacity which characterize the Anglo-Saxon spirit. But his ability to withstand the climate is due not only to the happy constitution with he was born, but to the strictly temperate life he has ever led. A drunkard and man of vicious habits could never have withstood the climate of Central Africa. The second day after my arrival in Ujiji, I asked the doctor if he did not feel a desire sometimes to visit his country, and take a little rest after his 6 years' explorations, and the answer he gave me reveals the man. Said he, "I should like very much to go home and see my children once again, but I cannot bring my heart to abandon the task I have undertaken when it is so nearly completed. It only requires 6 or 7 months more to trace the true source that I have discovered with Petherick's branch of the White Nile, or with Albert Nyanza of Sir Samuel Baker, which is the lake called by the natives Chawambi. Why should I go home before my task is ended, to have to come back again to do what I very well do now?" "And why," I asked, "did you come so far back without finishing the task which you say you have got to do?" "Simply because I was forced. My men would not budge a step forward. They mutinied, and formed a secret resolution, if I still insisted upon going on, to raise a disturbance in the country, and after they had effected it, to abandon me, in which case I should have been killed. It was dangerous to go any further. I had explored 600 miles of the watershed, had traced all the principal streams which discharged their waters into the central line of drainage. But when about starting to explore the last 100 miles, the hearts of my people failed them, and they set about frustrating me in every possible way. Now, having returned 700 miles to get a new supply of stores, and another escort, I find myself destitute of even the means to live but for a few weeks, and sick in mind and body." Here I may pause to ask any brave man how he would have comported himself in such a crisis. Many would have been in exceeding hurry to get home to tell the news of the continued explorations and discoveries, and to relieve the anxiety of the sorrowing family and friends awaiting their return. Enough surely had been accomplished toward the solution of the problem that had exercised the minds of his scientific associates of the Royal Geographical Society. It was no negative exploration; it was hard, earnest labor of years, self-abnegation, enduring patience, and exalted fortitude, such as ordinary men fail to exhibit. Suppose Livingstone had hurried to the coast after he had discovered Lake Bangweolo, to tell the news to the geographical world, then had returned to discover Morero, and run away again; then went back once more only to discover Kamolondo, and to race back again. This would not be in accordance with Livingstone's character. He must not only discover the Chambezi, Lake Bangweolo, Luapula River, Lake Morero, Lualaba River, and Lake Kamolondo, but he must still tirelessly urge his steps forward to put the final completion to the grand lacustrine river system. Had he followed the example of ordinary explorers, he would have been running backwards and forwards to tell the news, instead of exploring, and he might have been able to write a volume upon the discovery of each lake, and earn much more money thereby. They are no few months' explorations that form the contents of his books. His missionary travels embraces a period of 16 years, his book on the Zambezi 5 years, and if the great traveller lives to come home, his third book, the grandest of all, must contain the records of 8 or 9 years. It is a principle with Livingstone to do well what he undertakes to do, and in the consciousness that he is doing it, despite the yearning for his home, which is sometimes overpowering, he finds to a certain extent contentment, if not happiness. To men differently constituted, a long residence amongst the savages of Africa would be contemplated with horror. Yet Livingstone's mind can find pleasure in food for philosophic studies. The wonders of primeval nature, the great forests and sublime mountains, the perennial streams and sources of the great lakes, the marvels of the earth, the splendors of the tropic sky by day and by night, all terrestrial and celestial phenomena are manna to a man of such self-abnegation and devoted philanthropic spirit. He can be charmed with the primitive simplicity of Ethiop's dusty children, with whom he has spent so many years of his life. He has a sturdy faith in their capabilities, sees virtue in them where others see nothing but savagery, and wherever he has gone among them, he has sought to elevate a people that were apparently forgotten of God and Christian man. One night I took out my notebook, and prepared to take down from his own lips what he had to say about his travels, and unhesitatingly he related his experiences, of which the following is a summary. Dr. David Livingstone left the island of Zanzibar in March, 1866. On the 7th of the following month he departed from Mikinde Bay for the interior, with an expedition consisting of 12 sepoys from Bombay, 9 men from Johanna of the Comoro Islands, 7 liberated slaves, and 2 Zambezi men, taking them as an experiment, 6 camels, 3 buffaloes, 2 mules, and 3 donkeys. He had thus 30 men with him, 12 of whom, viz. the sepoys, were to act as guards for the expedition. They were mostly armed with the Enfield rifles presented to the doctor by the Bombay government. The baggage of the expedition consisted of 10 bales of cloth and 2 bags of beads, which were to serve as the currency by which they would be enabled to purchase the necessaries of life in the countries the doctor intended to visit. Beside the cumbrous moneys, they carried several boxes of instruments, such as chronometers, air thermometers, sextant, and artificial horizon, boxes containing clothes, medicines, and personal necessaries. The expedition traveled up the left bank of the Rovuma River, a route as full of difficulties as any that could be chosen. For miles Livingstone and his party had to cut their way with their axes through the dense and almost impenetrable jungles which lined the river's banks. The road was a mere footpath leading in the most erratic fashion into and through the dense vegetation, seeking the easiest outlet from it without any regard to the course it ran. The pagazis were able to proceed easily enough, but the camels, on account of their enormous height, could not advance a step without the axes of the party clearing the way. These tools of foresters were almost always required, but the advance of the expedition was often retarded by the unwillingness of the sepoys and Johanna men to work. Soon after the departure of the expedition from the coast, the murmurings and complaints of these men began, and upon every occasion and at every opportunity they evinced a decided hostility to an advance. In order to prevent the progress of the doctor, and in hopes that it would compel him to return to the coast, these men so cruelly treated the animals that before long there was not one left alive. But as the scheme failed, they set about instigating